morning.
Looking pretty chilly everywhere.
It is freezing here in the Helderberg.
Oh, really? Shame. How are you, Cindy?
Yeah, I'm good. Thanks. And you?
Also good, thanks. Yeah.
You can see I've got a ray of sun on me.
Yeah, I had an early start, drove into PE today from St. Francis. Dark and rainy all the way. It's like being in Europe.
Oh.
Have you had as much flood damage on your end of the world as on this side, Dirk?
No, we haven't, unfortunately. And I mean that in a yeah, we've had quite a bit of rain, but I don't think it's quite fallen where we all need it. So I know a lot of the dams are better, but our main dam isn't. So, but I'm not sure if that's due to infrastructure or. But yeah, but I see you guys have had a lot of damage.
Yeah, there's been a lot of damage here and up the west coast towards Citrusdal.
Yeah.
And towards the Klein Karoo.
It's crazy, and your rainfall season hasn't even started properly yet.
Usually we get this kind of cold, rainy weather towards the end of July, middle August. And it just started raining last week of May and feels like it hasn't stopped.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's cold, yeah. I mean, in St. Francis, it's our third winter, yeah, and it's the coldest by a long way. So. Okay, let's see. Okay, Cindy's new to the group. I've known Cindy a long time, but she has an established business in Cape Town, and she was bouncing some ideas off me around fees. So I thought this would be the perfect opportunity to invite her to the group. See more people joining. Okay, I think just give it a few more minutes. Morning, Mark. Morning, Barry.
Morning, Cindy. Welcome.
Hello, Barry. Hello. Good to see you. Hear you.
Morning, Russ.
You're hiding like a ghost there.
Oh, shit. Sorry.
Yeah.
I was going to say to everyone, please turn on your cameras, so we know you're not sleeping. That's not school, don't worry. Brian, you got to do something about your background, but.
My bookcase is coming soon.
No, but you got such a nice new logo and everything. You should look at mine, man. If I can do this, you can do it.
No, what's her face? Katie said we mustn't do that. She said that's not cool. So it's gospel if it comes out of, Katie's mouth. So
yeah. Yeah, Katie doesn't do what we do.
Exactly. Thank you.
Yeah, she's nice, but she doesn't do what we do.
Doesn't do what we do.
Yeah, I think there's no other business, no other industry where there's so many experts who don't make the money that way that we do. That's not saying it's a wrong thing, but that's what's good about this group is it's all people who are at the coalface. Okay. Yeah, so guys, I think we can get started slowly. The fee thing is something which comes up again and again. And it will again and again. It'll never end because there are, there's so many ways that people do charge fees. It's unfortunate that the industry has got such a bad name because of how people charge fees, and not because of the great work that people do, but that is how it is. Is Andre Boer not here yet? Is he part of the group? Okay, well, hopefully he'll join because I know Andre battles with this a bit. So yeah, I think bad news always overshadows good news about good work that we do, and yeah, I don't know if there's much we can do about that apart from just continue to do really good work. And we know, like in this group, anyone who's here is taking the time out is because you're passionate about what we do. You want to make it a better place, and you want to learn and grow and share with others. So what I've done is I've just put together a little PowerPoint, which I think would just give us a bit of structure around around this discussion. And I must stress that I don't have all the answers. I suppose I have years of experience in the industry, and I've tried everything and kind of settled for what I believe what works for me and our clients. And I know what's interesting here is we've got people like Brown who charge flat fees. We've got people who have various hybrid models and all kinds of things. And there are a lot of youngsters and a lot of newcomers to the industry who battle with this whole thing around how do we charge. The older folk like myself, quite simply, when we fell into this industry, and I mean it, fell into the industry 30 odd years ago. Kind of commission is how it was. That's what it was, and you never question it because there wasn't really anything else, and we were also not made to fully understand pros and cons of that charging model. And then as the industry's changed, we've obviously become more aware and made changes as it's gone along. And again, the big difference with a lot of the youngsters coming in is that unlike us, they go and choose this as a career early on in their adult lives. They go and study it, and then they're exposed to this industry, which is not really conducive to building a business when you're young and don't have a lot of experience and don't know a lot of very wealthy people, apart from hopefully our parents. Okay, so I'm going to just share my screen. Can you guys see this?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right. So we've got a little PowerPoint thing here. So, oh God, you see, I finished it off this morning. So I've got to just actually take out those. Okay, so we're going to just look at, first I've listed a whole lot of different fee structures. And again, we can add to this, guys. So I'm going to lead the discussion initially, but if anyone wants to butt in, just stick up your hand and we can have a look. Then I want to just talk about, I call it getting out of our own way. And this is kind of the way that we all feel about how we charge. And then chatting about different fee models versus different value propositions. And then what I'm going to do is just show you how in our business we position our fees with clients, and then take you through a few practical examples, because we do have clients that have been invested with us for over 20 years. So I'd like to show you how we've charged those clients and the actual effects of fees over 20 years, which I think is a fair investment horizon. Okay, so different fee structures. I've listed 6, and we can add to that. So first, a commission, then the whole assets under management, AUM, flat fees, time or project-based fees, minimum fees, and then a hybrid fee model. So let's just get into this. So I've tried to list your pros and cons of each of these. So on commissions, a pro with commissions is that it's legislated, it's laid out. It's the premium times, if I remember correctly, 11.4% times the term, clocking out at a maximum of about 26 years. I think that's what it was in the old days. I know RA commissions changed a bit, but either way, commission on risk products and on investments is clearly laid out. So I see that as a pro. It's included in the risk premium over time. So in other words, if someone buys a risk contract, we all know we've played with the idea where we try and take the commission off, or we go fee based. And in my experience is in most cases, it really doesn't make a significant difference to what the client ends up paying. But it is included in that premium over time. So, risk, we're talking about pure risk, there's no investment there. It does allow upfront funding for work done. So again, a problem a lot of the younger planners have is a lot of the clients they will work with don't have a lot of money because they're paying off debt, and they'll be spending a lot of their time doing a bit of risk business, and so it does pay for that. And it does also allow one to work with, for want of better words, lower end or poorer clients. In other words, I think it's becoming obvious that proper financial planning is really for those who can pay for it. But you are able to help someone the way the commissions are structured, who perhaps doesn't have a huge amount to invest because you're getting paid up front for that. Cons around it is that obviously it encourages switching and rebroking, which very often is not in the client's best interests. We know that we've seen people who will switch premium patterns. We've had cases recently where they've moved clients from comprehensive disability to own and similar, which is no good, changing waiting periods, things like that. So it encourages that kind of behavior. So it incentivizes also setting products versus looking at what the client's actually needs are, because people can end up looking at premium versus, so in other words, how much can you afford, and sell according to that, and how can I maximize my income from that versus what does the client actually need. It's harmful on long-term investments. So this is something I believe it, sitting, we don't know where we're going to be in 5 years, let alone 10, 15, 20 years. So to be paying 25-year commission on an investment where there's a very high likelihood that at some point there will be a change due to a lifestyle change, seems a bit unfair. And then also there's seldom is there real disclosure on commission, because it's somewhere at the bottom of the quote. By the time the clients get there, their eyes are glazed. It's done that way on purpose. If it wasn't, it would be on the front page. So there are some pros, but obviously with commission, I believe there are a lot of cons. Okay, pros and cons of AUM. So I think a pro is that it's quite easy to understand. If we say we charge 0.5% or 1% or whatever that is, like, even though people don't always monetize it, in other words, what is 1% of 100,000 or 1% of 1 million? I think it is quite easy to understand. It does reward longer term relationships, and both ways. In other words, that so we'll work with clients where perhaps when we start working with them, they don't have a lot of funds available. But we know that if we nurture that relationship, help them make smart decisions as they go along, and we're looking to build a 20, 30-year relationship with them with the business, that eventually they will be in a position that it is profitable for the business. Same way for the client, it should keep the advisor interested if they are earning on an ongoing basis. Doesn't always, but that could be a pro. It's easily collected, so there's no invoicing or anything. It's simply paid to us directly by the administrator. It does allow for stability in building a business, because slowly as the AUM grows, so does our turnover and our income. And then also it allows a client to move to a new advisor, and for that new advisor to get remunerated. So on a commission basis, normally what happens is once the commission's been paid up front, and second year commission, and even the ongoing commission that gets paid on the premium increases, that normally stays with the original advisor. On the AUM model, we are able to take over the ongoing fee, so it does allow the new advisor to get remunerated. Cons are it's very difficult for new entrants to make ends meet. again, because you're starting off from zero, and to build, if you're charging, if you were to be charging 1%, it takes quite a while before you actually build up an annuity income that can actually fund your business. So it's quite difficult. It also encourages building a book or book building, and asset collecting versus a proper, what we would want, a lifestyle financial planning relationship. So we'll see, generally, we go to a presentation or a talk, and you meet someone and they ask you about your business, and all they want to know is what's your AUM. And that's almost an indication of how successful you are or what kind of a business you have. So I think that's a negative, because it's really not indicative of that at all. Then also it can reward the advisor for doing nothing. So you can bring on a client and not see them for 20 years, but be earning AUM all that time for doing absolutely nothing, for no reviews, no servicing. It can lead to focus on the money. Again, this is where we say, well, hang on, you've got no money to invest. I'm not interested in working with you. And it can also mean that down the line, you discourage clients from disinvesting their money to enhance their lifestyles, and instead make them the richest person in the grave, which clearly doesn't serve them either. And as I've said before, it implies business success. So, again, people, if you've got a big AUM, people will look at you as if kind of you've made it, whereas it's no indication of the quality of work that you're actually doing. Pros and cons of flat fees. Brian, you can jump on me anytime here. Again, I think it's easy to understand, because you'll say I'm paying X amount for this value proposition. So I think some of your flat fee advisors, they may have different service propositions that they offer clients depending on where they are or what they want. But I think it's probably fairly easy to explain that to clients. You get rewarded for work done immediately. So I think you kind of contracting with a client here, and you're going to get paid, and Brian could help us here, but I would imagine you get paid a certain amount up front before some work gets done. It's easily collected. That could be a pro or a con. Again, Brian's going to help us with that one. I would imagine, you invoice, but I think that you're not going to start work without any sort of upfront payments. It allows stability when markets move, which is a huge pro. So when the market drops 30% and your AUM drops 20%, because it doesn't drop as much as the market, if you're on a flat fee basis, then obviously that doesn't affect you. And also it would allow clients to switch this off if they're not happy with the service or advice. So it's positive for clients too. A con would be that, again, I think it's difficult for new entrants to make ends meet if they don't have a track record or little experience. And another slash might be their confidence. But I think if we know how long it can take to become a CFP professional, and we need experience to do that as well. So I know quite a few young entrants who've tried to do this, and I know that it's been really tough for a lot of them. Again, it can be, as I said, it's easy to collect, and also be not easy to collect with invoicing. If you're invoicing on a monthly basis, I suppose it would depend if you're charging or how you actually are collecting those flat fees. It could be transitional in its nature. I'm not saying that it is, but it could be transitional, where you're perhaps working on projects or whatever. It's no quality. It's no guarantee of the quality of the work. I must add that falls into almost every single category. I think the way we charge in all of these. So just carry that forward to all of the fee models. Yeah, and it can lead to focus on a single project and not necessarily holistic service. Again, so we know that not everyone that charge flat fees is a lifestyle financial planner, as we in this group see it. They could be giving advice which is perhaps not as holistic or complete as we would do. Okay. All right. And then time or project-based fees. Again, pros, I think it's easy to understand. So a client or an advisor will go to a client, okay, I think this is going to take me X amount. I charge 2,000 Rand an hour or whatever it is. And then that's it. So it's kind of as we would perhaps use an attorney or an accountant. Pro is that the rewards are spent for time working on that client or for that client. So we know that in some of the other fee models, we can do a lot of work and not get remunerated. And I would imagine that once in place, it would allow business stability as well, just because it's if you build a business where you're regularly billing for time, like an accounting business or a legal business, then I think that obviously as you have more clients, it creates stability. And again, allows clients to switch off if they're not happy with the service. So if they don't feel they're happy with the advice or service, they can just stop paying. Cons are, again, I think for new entrants, it's difficult to make ends meet. And again, because of no track record or little experience, I think this applies to a lot of professions, be it a doctor, be it an accountant or a lawyer. You're going to find very few attorneys that are going to go out, do their whatever and then go and open the business on their own. It's, are we going to deal with a 35-year-old that's been working for 10 years at least, or are we going to deal with a 27, 28-year-old who's just finished his articles? Also, again, not always easy to collect if you're invoicing, however. It is really transitional in its nature, which for me personally, this is me personally, I don't want to work on that basis. So I think it can encourage transitional work, which again doesn't speak to my mind to proper lifestyle financial planning. Again, there's no quality of the work done, as time can be manipulated, and I can show you many books on this where the whole time-based way of charging can be hugely flawed. And an easy way to also understand this is someone with 30 years in the experience could find the answer to something in 20 minutes, and someone with a year's experience, it might take them a couple of days. I think we can all relate to that. It can lead to focus on a single project and not holistic advice. So again, it speaks to the kind of business that we would want to run. Okay, and then minimum fees. So minimum fees I see is where we say, okay, we're going to work with people, but there's a minimum fee. So if you become a client, we're going to charge you an upfront fee of 10, 15, 20, 50,000 Rand. You can look at various businesses have got various understandings of this or various versions of this. Again, it's easy to understand because if you're not going to pay my minimum fee, then you can't become a client. A pro is also that you then always you've worked out what you need to earn. So generally, you're going to be working with profitable clients, especially initially, and it allows one to build business stability. A con is that obviously it reduces the amount of people that will find this attractive. So you'll find a lot of clients right now that will say, well, someone else will do this for me for nothing. That could be an analysis on retirement or risk or anything like that. So there's that potential that it reduces your markets. Again, I think it's different for new entrants. It's kind of a common thread that I see coming through here. This business is tough for new people joining the industry, and then it may turn some clients off because they just feel that they don't want to pay whatever your minimum may be, and we can discuss this further. And I think this kind of ties in a little bit with some of the flat fee advisors as well. I spelled minimum wrong there, sorry. Okay, and then you've got the hybrid models, which could be consist of a mix of any of those. I think a big pro of this is it can help build a new business for new entrants in the market. So you might find, and this is certainly how I started, where because of my age, I was able to do a fair amount of risk business, which brought risk commission in. which allowed me a little bit of breathing space while I built the AUM business. Yeah, so it makes different level of clients profitable. Again, this can make it viable to working with younger clients who perhaps don't have assets to invest, and for you to be able to earn a assets under management fee. And once in place, it can allow business stability. So certainly you'll have ongoing commissions coming in from risk business, and then that together with your AUM gives you two kind of sources of this. And again, this doesn't have to be commission or AUM. This could be a minimum fee. This could be a flat fee. It could be any of the above. I'm just using what I've used. Cons are that it needs to be monitored over time, because what happens in the end is that you can end up with a large spread of clients. So you can end up with your, let's call them ideal clients, where you're earning well, and then you've got a whole lot of clients that perhaps haven't grown financially, and you're battling a bit with those. You aren't necessarily making money, and they're expecting the same amount of time. So that can be an offshoot of that in the long run. Okay, before I carry on, any comments on that, guys? I'm not. None of this is right or wrong. It's my view. So, Brian, I know you definitely want to share some stuff. I see, Ryan, you got a question. We'll get there. Brian.
Okay. Not sure I want to share anything. I think it was extremely comprehensive. Yeah, just to come back to you mentioned the transitional in nature, the way of working. I think, if I'm understanding correctly, you're meaning transactional in nature.
Sorry, geez, yeah, I was up really early this morning. Yeah, you're right, transactional.
Okay,
yeah.
Cool.
So,
yeah.
So I call it transactional versus relational. Yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think, and that's also like a lot of people on all the models you talk about, they have that problem. So like, for instance, I can't remember who it was on the WhatsApp the other day, but helping a client with like a 500 Rand RA, I mean, that's 100% the same thing. It's transactional. And so what I think when it comes to those types of transactions, if you have a firm that somehow you get those people that come to you, what I found with other advisors when speaking to them is they say, if they take on those small projects, like maybe someone is getting retrenched, they need some sort of advice about what the next step is. They need some financial planning to happen. They've maybe got a pension fund or something that needs to be preserved or transferred or something, and maybe put some money aside to fund them while they're looking for another job. That's like a project. And you could say, well, that's going to cost you X amount. And apparently, what some advice firms do, and I think Mel, I don't know if she's on the call, but Mel Jacoby, I think what she could speak to this is you give it to someone like a young advisor or a young planner or an articled person to have more, time behind the wheel, so to speak. I think it's a good way to get a bit of exposure to understand the ins and outs of that particular thing in life. And then you can have an agreement, I suppose, where you just work on that for the person and you let go of the relationship. The nice thing about that is that if you compare it to the general IFA business model, those people will be on your books forever. And that is what every advisor moans about, is having those people that they have to give annual reviews to. There's risk associated with giving advice, and then maybe not doing annual checkups with them or something, and being found out for that. So I think if it is a case of you're looking for an income and you want to help somebody with something, and if you've got the time or you've got a staff member who needs a bit of training in that respect, it's like, okay, well, give them this. It's like net practice, but it's most definitely not financial planning in the purest form, or LFP. But I suppose, that's just my take on it. I don't cater for it. I don't even have a way to price it. And I did yesterday.
So Brian, sorry, the challenge there again is that even for that person doing that work, it's not profitable. I mean, it's and you
It
know,
can be. It can be.
well, I mean, the 500 Rand RA, I mean, how are you going to make that profitable?
No. So I mean, for that person, it's not profitable at all.
Yeah.
But if you do a project, for instance, and you help someone set
Yeah.
up an RA, and if you're worth your salt, you would say, well, I'm first going to do at least a retirement planning exercise for you.
Yeah.
And you say, well, a quick retirement planning exercise, I need to have a meeting, I need to have a planning meeting, and I need to have an implementation kind of meeting, I would imagine. I mean, I haven't done this, but you could easily price that at a certain amount. And if the person doesn't accept, it's too bad. Then you haven't wasted your time and they haven't gone through the process and you don't have them as a client anymore. So it's you can price it. And I know that some advice firms or many advice firms just do a planning exercise once off for people. The going price for that is about 30,000 ex VAT. And a lot of people pay for it every 2 or 3 years as opposed to attaching themselves to the firm. You know, they like to DIY their investments, but they need a plan. So I think there's this value, there's a conversation to be had about that if you think I have capacity to do a bit of that. But yeah, you got to protect yourself. You got to make money from it. And if the person doesn't want to pay, then you know they can go to Easy Equities and set up their own RA. I mean, that's why it's there. You know, we're not meant to be that person for everybody, I think.
Yeah, no, look, I mean, you know, the more I do this, the whole difference between the transactional and the relational, it just gets clearer and clearer. You know, if I look at a few clients that we've had for say 4 or 5 years where they came to us and we've done their retirement planning and they were like kind of just there to do a few things. 4 or 5 years down the line, they are way ahead of where they were going to be. And I honestly believe it's just because there is a plan in place. And our question, whether if it had been an exercise, in other words, a transactional exercise that they'd gone to, whether they would be where they are today. My belief is that they wouldn't. But I mean, I'm open to change, and that's why. But also the way I want to work, I want to be relational. I don't want to be transitional. But there is a place for all of it, and I think the discussion today is just how do we accommodate all these different models, and then you know what works for us.
Yeah, I think that.
Yeah,
just quickly on that, I agree with you completely, and that is why with my business, I only have ongoing retainer relationships. So, and like you said, if you say the word flat fee, it could mean it's A to Z. There's a whole lot of different things, and it could be hourly or whatever. I don't get involved with that. I think it's going to be quite admin intensive, and now I have to kind of manage or record my time. I'm not sure how you'd even do that. So what I do is the only difference between I think myself and your firm is that I have a price point, and you apply a rate. And that is the only difference. And so it's for me, it's all about the value of planning is planning and not the plan. And so it's ongoing retainers, and it would be anywhere between, what is it, 22.5 up to 50,000 a year, depending on who I'm dealing with. And they must pay me that annually, and how they pay me, I don't really care. I don't take crypto, but most of my clients pay me from their assets. And if they don't have sufficient assets, they will pay me directly. So I've got 27 clients at the moment, and 12 is monthly invoicing through Xero. They don't have remotely enough assets to pay me. And the rest is coming from their AUM.
Okay. Thanks, Brian. Thanks for sharing. That's very interesting. Shannon, I see you got a question. Shannon, you're muted.
Hi, sorry about that. And maybe you weren't muted as well. It's the way it is at the moment. Bit of laryngitis, so please excuse it. Brian, just directed at you. You know, very often with clients in terms of planning, the heavy lifting is done in the initial stages. That's when the hard work comes in. And once you get a client settled into a financial plan and they're used to dealing with you, and we're now 5 years down the line, maybe even more, how do you still justify charging that same planning fee when there's not that much work to go, I mean, to be done, or not much work that is apparent to the client? There might be quite a lot of work done in the background. So, you know, and that's one of the struggles that I find is, you know, for my long-standing clients, I kind of look at them and, you know, how do I justify what I'm charging them? How do you get past that?
I think that's an awesome question. I think a few things, and I think this will take a mindset shift. And I would ask you, Shannon, and you don't need to speak, but I think a throat is sore. I'd ask you, why didn't you ask Dirk that question? I mean, honestly.
No. And I think it's equally applicable to Dirk. So in an AUM business, it's not. I think it's more obvious in your business. I'm more an AUM type model, and it is something that I grapple with myself. Saying, I'm charging these clients this amount, but I'm actually work's done, and they're my easy clients, my biggest clients with the longest standing relationships. They're easy, and when we have the client meetings, most of the time it's just to have a cup of coffee and just have an informal chat. We do very little financial planning. The financial planning is almost incidental. And so this is something I'm grappling with. So yeah, my question is to you, Brian, and to Dirk, and anybody else out there who sits with the same dilemma.
Now, let me answer that. I always play devil's advocate. I think I just wanted to see where it comes from. So like I said, it's a mindset thing. Now, the fact that you're having very easy meetings with people is because you did a bloody good job probably a while back. And the work we do is foundational. And if you utilize cash flow modeling, every year you're reminded of the difference you may have made in people's lives. When someone passes away and you see everything just click into place, you're reminded of the value that we added. I don't price based on hours. First I have to cover my bases. So I have to cover my bases. I need to earn more than what it costs me, or else I'm an NGO and I need to rethink my business model. But I don't justify anything to anyone. My price is my price. And if someone doesn't pay my price, it's fine. If someone doesn't want to pay me 1% on 100 million, that's fine. If someone doesn't want to pay me 60,000 Rand a year, that's 100% fine. I'm not for them and they're not for me. Where I might have failed is how to maybe communicate my value. But the difference is that life is going to happen in bunches, and then it's not going to happen for a long time. So I got a client now, I'm meeting with him today. His father-in-law is now dying. So he's 2 months to live. Guess who's doing all the planning, the estate planning for a man who's never done estate planning before and owns a business of 30 million Rand? Me. But I'm doing that for my client's father-in-law, but it's part of I'm just helping him. So I could charge extra, I'm not. But the thing is that it wasn't part of the deal, and my annual fee for him is in the 40,000s, and maybe last year was a 10,000 Rand year if I utilize the logic you mentioned. This is 100,000 Rand year or 150,000 Rand year. It comes in bunches, and so what I say to myself, I've never had this conversation with clients. I don't care to, but what I say to myself is, I'm pricing over the long term the value of the life of the client relationship, and the value that we give. I mean, it's ridiculous. And the problem is, if I don't know that what I do is valuable, I can't ask for 1 cent. I can't ask for 1% if I don't know what I do is valuable. And so it's a long answer, but when it comes back to your question, the mindset is my price is my price. I mean, do you think Woolworths give a shit about the price label on their price? They just tell people, and people can say, well, I'm going to Checkers. And it's like hundreds. Go to Checkers. And so if your price is 50,000 a year, for instance, I mean, I don't know what it might be. And then next year's smooth sailing. Why is it smooth sailing? Everything's in place because you did a very good job. And so I think that you have to look over the long term. I think if I was pricing for projects, which, like I said, I haven't done before, but then I would say, okay, well, fine. If I do this project, I need to be more hours focused, maybe, look at time, look at the value I add and come up in the middle. But I would say mostly my pricing, as long as I've covered my bases, is value-based. And value-based is a very different conversation. And I never justify it. I just tell them what my price is and I just look them right in the eyes. And more often than not, people accept it, which is a problem. I've got to have more people saying no.
Shannon, Shannon, if I can come in and I know you're new to this group, so anything that's said is meant in a kind way. And I think that what you've described is there's a hell of a lot that you can do that you're maybe not aware you can do. You know, life doesn't just carry on in a straight line. So I would offer to you that you should really look at how you do your review meetings and look at ways of making them more meaningful. So instead of sitting with clients, having a chat and a catch up and looking at the numbers, actually take them through, you know, if you're, so again, it comes back to what do you call a financial plan? Is it a financial plan I can retire on 30 grand a month or whatever, or some cash flow model, or is it like, you know, like what is meaningful in your life? You know, I mean, what are the things that get you excited? You know, what are the things that are going to make you live a meaningful life? And I'm finding very often that those things, although we try and unpack them initially, they only really come to the fore further on down the line as our relationships with the clients grow. So I'm finding, I mean, we're sitting with a client now that's been with us for, wow, 16 years. He's retired already. He went to work overseas, came back. We're now redoing the whole plan, and he sent us a wish list, and he's not going to be able to do everything on that list. So we're going to have to sit down with him and say, right, okay, we told you to think big. So now you got some choices to make. Okay, which of these things are most important? So that's, again, it's not an easy discussion, but we're offering to that. We could play it safe. We could play it really safe and just carry on down the line. The only way the client's thinking that way is because we've encouraged them to think that way. We've said, come on, there's more to life. What more can you do? And we've encouraged them to dream. And to me, that's what real lifestyle financial planning is. It's not about the money. It's about utilizing that money for clients to live their best possible life. And that, so I'm saying to you, and I'm happy to show you what we do and to chat with you around that. But I'm thinking if you're finding those meetings boring, I can guarantee your clients are finding them boring, okay, and irritating. So I think there's a massive opportunity for you to add piles more value. And I mean, you know, what you said is really honest and well done for that. But I think, you know, because you're saying I'm not sure I'm adding value, and but I'm telling you, there's a whole lot of things that you can actually do that aren't massively difficult, you know. But life definitely doesn't move in a straight line. You know, there are always things that are going to happen, good, planned, unplanned, you know, around all areas in one's life. So, and I think that's where I see our value as being our relationship. So that when something happens, they have a trusted relationship. They can come to us. We know who they are as an individual, as a family, and we know which direction they want to go, and we can help them make those decisions.
Yeah, and you know, Dirk, for me, it's don't get me wrong. I don't say the meetings are boring. I just say they're simple. Okay.
Sure.
And I think that's in terms of financial planning, exactly as Brian alluded to. We have the years that it's plain sailing, and then you have the years where you going through a storm with the client. And so the problem is quite often with well laid out plans, you have more years of plain sailing than having to ride out storms with the client. And it's in those years that my concern is, and this is for everybody out there, and again, how they deal with it, is how do you make sure you are articulating your value to the client on an ongoing basis? You know, what, and Brian, coming back to that, your client, where it was a particularly good year and that you weren't having to do much. What if the client turns around to you and says, okay, I'm switching the fees off? And then the year that the storm arrives, he comes knocking on your doors again and saying, I want your services again. So it's sort of an on-demand basis. And Dirk, you know, that's where I'm coming from, is this continuous articulation of value. And so much happens in the background that very often the client sees you swimming like a swan, all calm on the surface, but underneath you're paddling like hell, and you know you're doing a lot of work for the clients and the offerings there. So yeah, it's just a question to everybody. How examples of how you all are articulating that ongoing value?
Yeah, Shannon, that's really good. And I think, you know, we can actually put that down to another session where we explore ways of how we demonstrate our value. Because I think one of the biggest problems around this issue is that too many of us don't understand or don't believe or aren't able to articulate the real value that we add to clients. So I think that's a great subject, and I think that's something we can maybe pick up we will definitely pick up in another session.
Sorry, I don't want to hijack this at all. And to enhance on that, another area that I really struggle with is articulating value again to a new client who's never dealt with you, never experienced what you actually do. And that's a big struggle on my side.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think we all battle with that. Ryan, I see you've got your hand up.
Thank you so much. Yes, I mean, there's lots of pros and cons to a lot of the fee models, but the question begs, do we know what it costs us to run our businesses? Because I think that's often a time, we go with this approach that this is my fee model, but is that a sustainable fee model for your business? Because we're all in the business to build a sustainable business for the long-term future. But if we're not priced correctly, we might be out of business sooner than what we would have hoped for. So my question is, and I'd love for some of us to share, if you know the answers to that, is do you know what it costs you to run your business? Like, for example, you need a minimum of X amount when a new client comes your way for this client to be profitable. I know it's not an exact science and it's difficult to get it 100% right, but even if it's just a ballpark figure, I would be interested to know. Thanks.
Look, Ryan, the best person there would speak to is June, because we worked years ago with the Old Mutual Wealth team on exactly that, and in dissecting every part of the business to actually work out what it does cost. And I think when you work out what it does cost, the reality is then in the lifespan of a business, there are going to be times when you're not profitable and then times where you are, because sometimes when you're building something, some money needs to be spent. I think the most profitable businesses are small one-man businesses. I think that's easy enough to understand because you would have less overheads. But I think you can actually break down exactly what it costs. And I don't know if you guys deal with June's people at all, but that would be a good exercise for you guys to go through. Ryan, because I see you also asking about selling a business, and again, this is for me because are you talking about a lifestyle planning business, or are you talking about a book? So you're talking about the assets, you're talking about the relationships. I think it's also probably another discussion. Can I ask that we just carry on to finish my PowerPoint thing, and then we'll get back to more questions. Because I addressed some of these. So I put this out there because I think a lot of the newcomers are battling with a lot of this. I see Yondela's just joined us. Morning, Yondela. And I know Andre's here. And Andre, my comment to you on the WhatsApp group was meant tongue in cheek. But I think sometimes, especially the newcomers to the industry, the youngsters, because the industry's got such a bad name, and they look at who's meant to have been so successful, and it's the guys who've built massive books of business and are earning millions in annuity income, and that can be quite disheartening. But I think what we got to understand is that earning income is not a dirty thing. We all need to earn a living, and quite frankly, if you're not going to earn a living, then you must rather go do something else. What is dirty is misleading clients. So as Brian has quite eloquently said, you've got to work out what you want to charge, what you need to earn, what you believe you're worth, and you have to actually believe that. You've got to actually do that. But the only thing wrong, if you are earning commission, if you are explaining to a client, in my view, if you explain to a client how it works, what you're earning, and why you are structuring part of your fee that way, especially on risk, on investment, I can't really justify it. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Those products are designed like that. So I think we've really got to accept that being dishonest is dirty, but earning an income certainly isn't. and everyone's position is unique. There's no one size fits all, and that's why there's no judgment on any of these fee models. And you will see that the better planners in the industry are connect with a lot of them all around the world, and when they really are focused really on the client, they realize, and they'll admit, that how one earns, whether it's AUM or it's fee or it's this, is not really the end of the world, because that doesn't actually define what they are doing for their clients. But each of us is in a unique position. So and the worst thing in our industry is that people get labeled or get made to feel bad because they charge in a certain way. And I think it's completely unfair and completely uncalled for, because often that comes from people who aren't in the industry. A lot of reporters who don't sit in our own shoes, but they've got to write something. It's the easiest thing to write about because it's controversial, but they really don't understand how it works. And often people in that position, because they're trying to help people who are from backgrounds where they don't have the financial means to pay for real advice. As tough as it is, also, and I've also learned this, we can't help everyone, and especially not in the beginning. As much as we want to help everyone in the beginning, we enter this profession and we just want to be saviors. It's fantastic, but the reality is that you are never going to be help everyone. And I've fought this for a long time, but I'm realizing more and more, you kind of do need to, I hate the word niche, but you do need to kind of start looking at who do you enjoy working with and who do you work well with. And I think that is really important, but you cannot help everyone, and especially people who don't want to listen to you and who don't want to pay you. We have to set some minimums, or we're going to pay the price. Again, the discussion around helping someone with a 500 Rand RA, it's a tough one. But I mean, if you're going to help someone with an RA, the flip question would be, what risk cover do you have in place? Because an RA at 6 grand a year is not going to help you retire. But if you lose your earning capacity, that is going to make a difference. So it's quite likely, and if the person doesn't see that, well, then quite frankly, they don't understand what real financial planning is. Saving for the future before you've taken care of the next working years of your life really doesn't make sense. But we're going to have to set minimums, otherwise we simply not going to move forward. Also, not everyone is great at sales. So we get, generally, when I started this industry 30 years ago, guys came, they sold cars, dishwashers, whatever, and then they could sell insurance, and they were great salespeople. And they weren't crooks, all of them, but they could sell. So they could build up rapport with people, they could convince people, they could close the sale, all those dirty words. But then there are people who aren't great at that, but they are great at the other aspects of the business. They're great technically, or they're great at nurturing and looking after relationships and growing them. And I think, again, this is a problem that the industry's created, because, and we understand where it comes from, is that it money talks. So you've got to come in and earn your keep. But again, there are possibilities to join, unfortunately not enough of them, but to join businesses where they look to employ people who are going to be, if you're a CFP, we had been called paraplanners, so maybe call it something else. But the fact is, there are people who are really good at doing paraplanning work, or maintaining relationships or client relations, but they're not necessarily good at being at the coalface and getting new clients over the line. So we need to just consider that. And I've recently done like the Gallup strength thing, which I've heard about for years. Maybe that's things like that we should all be looking at. And also, this is the truth, is going it alone is really hard. Okay, again, I've learned this. It is hard because you're out there on your own. You go to these investment talks and you meet some other mates that you know from varsity or from when you studied your CFP together, and you share stories, or you with on groups like this. And the whole idea about this group is, again, that we make going alone a little bit less lonely. But it is really hard. At the same time, teamwork is also hard. So, working together with people is not always the easiest thing, because we all got different personalities. We all have different strengths and areas where we're not as strong. So, but yeah, I would still say that working together as a team or being part of a team is something that a lot of young planners should explore, as opposed to just trying to forge their own way. And I'm not trying to break any future dreams or massive aspirations, but the reality is that working on your own is really hard, and you will eventually work out that you will try and build a team around you, because doing it on your own is just really too difficult. And you're building a one-man band, which you're building, all you've done is create yourself a job. You're not actually building a business. Okay, so then just on fee models versus your client proposition, quite simply, I simplify this in 2 ways. Lifestyle financial planning is where we build long-term relationships. They're generally warm and fluffy, and they're meaningful for us and for clients. This is my view. Again, this isn't accepted as universal, but the way I see lifestyle financial planning, this is the way I want to work. I want to build long-term relationships. I want to help people not only when they have money, when they're going through difficult, tough times as well. I want to be there to support them and help them get through that and rebuild. It does get warm and fluffy because we get very personal with clients. So we often know things about them that their nearest friends aren't aware of. And those relationships do get very meaningful for us and for our clients. And that versus transactional, which is transactional, got up too early. It's transactional, which is more looking at a specific need or a project, and is really short-term by its nature. There's nothing wrong with this. There are people who love project work. There are people who are brilliant at this work. But you need to understand I see them as two very different client propositions. And I think the fee models that you would have for those would then speak to how you work. So I think that's to consider. And obviously there can be some sort of a hybrid between those, especially when you're building a business. But I think eventually you're going to choose one of those dependent on the kind of person you are and the kind of business that you'd like to build. I think we've also got to understand, where does our value lie? So again, if we have done every course under the sun, we got 5 degrees, we're a lawyer, we're a CA, we're actuary, we're a fund manager, all of those things, we can add value in a different place to, if we maybe focus more on the people. Again, there's absolutely no right or wrong. It's understanding, where do you believe that your greatest value lies, and where do you going to get that pleasure? And then, what do I want my business to look like? So again, this is it. Do I want to have 2,000 clients or victims, or would I like to have, a business where we've got maybe 80 to 100 relationships per financial planner, and each financial planner has a team that they work with, and we look after our clients in that way. Again, neither right or wrong. It's understanding, what do you want? Am I in it to make as much money as I can? Nothing wrong with that. Am I in it to build a business to sell one day? Nothing in that, nothing wrong. I would question if you're a lifestyle financial planning business then, because I think the motivation between a real lifestyle financial planner is more relational and not speaking to the money. But what I want my business to look like. And then finally, we're getting deep here, but like, what feeds my soul? What makes you get out of bed at 5:30 in the morning? What makes you work till 10 o'clock at night? What makes you think about your clients when you're away on a long weekend or you're on a holiday? What makes you fulfilled? Because I think, if you have the care gene and you're a real lifestyle financial planner, then you will be financially successful in the long run, but you're going to be far more fulfilled in purpose than that. So again, that's my personal stuff, but this is what I honestly believe. And I know enough on the group to know that I think that's kind of behind their motivations as well. Yeah, and then why am I doing this? Okay, so that kind of speaks to that as well. Okay, so this is our our fee model, our slide that we show our clients, because we've got to start somewhere. So this is, we charge on an AUM basis. So we explain that there's an asset management fee, there's an admin fee. We can't charge an upfront fee. We generally don't, unless we think we're probably not going to want to work with you. And then we have a sliding scale fee, which we apply to clients on the assets that we have under our advice, under management. Okay. How do we adjust these? We kind of annually, on our annual review, obviously they can go up, they can go down. We explain this to clients up front. Then we say, do you understand? Any questions? Very seldom get any questions. We get asked, is this on my full asset base? In other words, my house, my boat, my car, my airplane? No, it's just on the money that you have with us, not the money in your pension fund. The reason we developed this is we believe that there's a limit where we need to make a certain amount of money to have a profitable relationship with the clients, but obviously that filters down as we go along. I think Ryan asked about providers who are allowing this into their onto the administration platform. We are talking to our mutual wealth about this. We've been speaking to them for quite a while. It is something that they are looking at, because this would be ideal, where instead of us having to manually adjust this at an annual review meeting, or when clients give us more money, then we go and adjust the fees on all their investments. It would be great if this was just done through the administrator. So I can tell you it is possible. It's a bit of work on their side, but it is possible. It can be done. They're already doing it with the admin fees on mutual wealth. You know, they have a minimum fee of 0.35 for our clients, and then a maximum per month per family. So they're doing that already. So this can be done. Okay, I then just wanted to share with you, proof is in the eating. So what I want to do is I want to share with you now, I have some of our real clients. You guys still seeing this?
Yeah.
Okay, let me make this a bit bigger. Okay, so these are real clients. Okay, so I've told you we've got some clients that have been with us for a while. So this is, you'll recognize it's an old mutual wealth statement. Quite a simple client, very simple, very old client. This total contributors 228. They've already disinvested 660,000. Amazing, the power of investments. They've still got some money left. Okay, so we then look at the rate of return, so we can see this shows the internal rate of return that the clients achieved over that period. Because one of the big questions, the reason I'm showing you this, is the effect of fees on returns, okay, and how much it steals from the client. That's not stealing if you're adding value, but I want to illustrate this. So this was done yesterday. Let me make that a bit smaller so we can see everything. Okay, so this client's been invested since February 2002. So we're looking at over 21 years. What I've got over here, the target was CPI plus 5. This is the return after fees. Okay, if we look at, there's the Aussie in the blue, there's CPI plus 5. We can see the clients wildly outperformed that benchmark. Now, those of you who work with the IWP understand that we use inflation targeted funds to predict future outcomes. So we can see this client, it's a very happy situation. The total fees, there's the investment charge. The client is in 4 to 6. So they've recently reduced their fees a bit. That's the admin fee. It's at the minimum 0.35. It hasn't gone through the 660 yet. And then there's our advice fee. So a total fee of 2.88, which has been forever. Bottom line is happiness is. Okay, let's look at somebody else. Okay, another client, over this period, total money come in almost 1.5 million. They've already spent almost all of that. They're sitting with more than they started with. We can see in different products, endowments, linked investments, living annuities. Again, we're able to see the the gross return and internal rate of return for each of those over the period that it's been invested. So some of these would have been newer, so the return over that period has not been as good. Again, let's look at the overall performance. This is, again, so we're looking here. This client's in maximum return funds, which is 100% equity, inflation plus 5. So we can see, and this is from 2002. Okay, so we can see maximum return has absolutely shut the lights out. So again, listen to the smart guys from TRAP. Cash for 3 years, the rest in 100% equity. Great companies of the world. There's the inflation plus 5 fund, and here we have the targets and then the JSE. So we not only has this outperformed the JSE, but their targets as well. Fees here, 3%. It's simply because maximum return is more expensive. So instead of 1.38, it's 1.54. So we can see the difference. So we can see those are the fees. The end result is an one that we're extremely happy with and proud of. Someone else, here again, money coming in. Let's just rush through this now. Net returns. This is over a shorter period. What's that, 13 years. Again, we can see CPI plus 5 there, JSE, they in 1 to even inflation plus 2, okay, has outperformed both the JSE and the inflation plus 5. But this is what time does. And again, look at the fees. Okay, so inflation, you can see inflation plus 3, there the fees less, 1.24. You can see. Okay, and then there's one final one. This is a much shorter term investment. It's still grown, split between 3 to 5 and 4 to 6. Decent net return over a short period, 3 years. And again, we can see that it's outperformed everything. So the reason I'm sharing this is because there's a lot of course, charges and fees are going to erode returns. Okay, but I'm telling you right now that the biggest the biggest cause of performance erosion is financial planners trying to be asset managers and trying to pick funds, build their own portfolios, and act like a superhero asset manager. If you find an investment strategy, those are the strategies I've used for all these years. Okay, my money's there, my mother's money's there. If I had chosen Allen Gray Balanced, or if I had chosen Coro, whatever, I can tell you they would probably look pretty similar. Okay, the reason I'm happy we've used our fund is because they speak to what we actually do. Okay, so it causes less confusion. It allows us to have better conversations with our clients. But the big thing there is we charge 1%. We charge a sliding scale on our biggest clients. You'll see when our fees come down, and the admin fees come down drastically. So as much as our larger clients are subsidizing our smaller clients, because this is always the question, oh, so I'm subsidizing somebody else. Yes, you are, but you're also getting a much lower rate. And remember that if you have a bad divorce or you make a bad business decision and you lose everything, do you want me to say to you, well, hang on, I'm not going to work with you anymore because you can't pay me? Okay, even though you've been with me for 15 or 20 years. So I think the people who are condemning the way that various people charge have never really been at the coalface. They don't understand the kind of relationships that a lifestyle financial planner has with their clients, which is very different to someone who's got 2,000 clients and a massive book of business, and he's looking to maximize that and sell that. So there we go. Okay, open to the floor. I've done enough speaking. Russell, I'm sure you got something to say.
Good morning. Thanks for sharing. Yeah, I think from my experience, and I've, Dirk, you've known me for a while as well, and I was listening since the beginning. It's kind of like also the tough part of the dilemma, but I've also spent a few years like working on that. You have to work like what is your worth and how much it takes to advise a client. I also in the start, like all of us, you want to help every client and work for nothing. But then I think the downside of that, especially if you're doing more of that than, doing good business and like advising clients and making a good profit and keeping your practice sustainable, you start actually resenting your work or your job. It's what made, like, I've known Dirk, I think I'm coming up 9 years at the end of this year in the industry, but I've known Dirk pretty much since almost year 1 or year 2. And when in my early years, I had the same experience where I was helping every client and I was charging 0.50% for any business, not taking it upfront. And Dirk was like, you too cheap. Like, you're driving to Utenek and Dispatch, which is like an hour drive out of PE to go see clients. And yeah, you want to help them, but like it's costing you more to service them. And then if you think about it, I've also learned over time, it's not only a disservice to your clients, because if you're not profitable, how are you going to be able to give better advice? And I've had this discussion with Brian as well. How are you able to give better advice and service your clients better? And at the same time, it starts eating at your reason or why for being in the industry. So I can understand also, I've also had that instance where I've had chats with clients, and I think learning also from Brian over time as well, on like, I have kind of like a hybrid model going now and it's been working, is also just being fully transparent with your clients. We're not there to serve every client out there. And I think a big thing is also holding your clients accountable. Your clients must be willing to also put in the work in addition to what you do. So, like what Dirk showed now, and that's always been a big thing. Like you see it in the media, people always question our fees. The thing is, like, for good advice, you pay for good advice. You're not going to go to a doctor and say, I want you to cure me, but I want to pay the cheapest price possible, So we have to also say from that point, because it's also like, it's also self-respect for yourself that you're charging your worth and you're also keeping your practice sustainable. And then at the same time, something I've learned is that the moment you start discounting and you think you are helping the client, indirectly what you're not realizing you're doing to the client, you're discounting your value. So the client then think, okay, you're actually not that good because you're discounting what you're worth. So I think just from what I've learned from the session is, you need to establish how much it costs you to run a practice. And when you come across clients that don't want to pay your fee, it's okay to tell them, look, I can't unfortunately take you on. You can't afford me, and not in a mean way, but you just have to be transparent with them and say, look, I've got overheads and things like that. And it costs me to give you advice. That's what I would add.
Thanks, Russell. Shannon, got your hand up?
Dirk, thanks for sharing that with us. Really appreciate that. Just a couple of questions. Do you charge an initial planning fee at all?
We don't, Shannon. I've tried it, I've done it, and I know a lot of people say we should, and I get that. My take on it is I believe that when a client decides to work with us, normally with us, they've been referred to us by someone they know. So, but they're still taking a hell of a chance. I mean, they know nothing about us. They have 3-4 meetings with us, and then they dive in if they dive in. And I respect the risk that they are taking. And the way I see it in my mind, and it's not a good commercial sense, but in my mind, I see that they're working on risk, and I'm quite happy to work on risk as well. I'm quite happy to show them my commitment to the relationship by doing that work. Because remember, the onboarding process we built is for us to disengage with people as well. Okay, so it's not just for clients to say, I don't want to work with you. It's for us to be able to say, look, I don't think we're a good fit. Go see Russell. So that's the way I see it. Again, as I say, commercially, it's not great. But and also where we are, I think in P, a lot of people would battle to pay 30 grand up front. As you said earlier on, they don't know what they're going to get. And again, I believe that our value proposition is something that needs to be felt to be understood. we can explain them what we want, but it's something people need to go through. And we often get that. Well, people afterwards will say, wow, this was amazing, this was different, or whatever. But they don't know that until they've actually been on the ride.
At what point of the planning process are you disclosing your fees?
In the first meeting.
Okay. And just another question, you might come across somebody that has investment assets that you can manage of, let's say, 20% of the value of their portfolio. They might be sitting with 80% of the value in a corporate retirement fund. So they are a perfect financial planning candidate, but you're not going to earn your worth off them. How would you deal with a situation like that?
Well, we got a case just like that. 16-year relationship. The client retired in January. He went from having 3.5 million rand to us to 24 million rand. So,
you've just carried the risk. You haven't really earned.
Yeah, we haven't really earned, but by maintaining that relationship, he's in his 60s, early 60s. That family will remain a client for 20 years, and he's an ideal client. So, we're earning, I think on the fee scale, it evens out to around 0.5%. So we're making decent money on that. It's a profitable relationship. So it's been worth it. And also because the client went through our process initially, they've always engaged with us the way we want them to engage. And it's been an ongoing relationship. So yeah, that's where, how do I justify earning 100,000 Rand a year? Well, because I've looked after him for 16 years and he understands that. He's comfortable with that. Okay. Cindy.
Dirk, I know I've seen your fee model before. I was just wondering if someone comes to you with, less than 1 million, say, do you charge a minimum? I think you said you don't, but I thought I saw that in your slides. I mean, we need to have minimums, otherwise we're going to go out of business. Or do you just carry the risk?
Cindy, I mean, it's something we actually looking at right now. I mean, generally we don't, because we kind of believe that if someone's prepared to go through the process and we can help them, then we'll get them there. But we do learn quite quickly to identify someone who's just never ever going to be that ideal client. So, if we can kind of steer them in the right direction, we'll do that. And this is, and I'm sure Yondela will comment on this. I mean, this is a reality, and not only in South Africa, I think in every country. Financial planning, the way we do it is, it's a profession, and professionals get paid professional fees, and the majority of people cannot afford us. That is the reality. So I'm all for helping everyone, but I think you've got to help yourself first. I think once you've built a business, then giving back in whatever way you want to give back is absolutely fantastic, and I think it should be done. Okay, but I think if we're trying to do it the other way, if we try and give back up front, we're never going to be able to get ahead ourselves. So it's a vicious circle, and something I don't have the answer for. But yes, the answer is we would initially try and help that person, but also in a case like that, we could shorten our process as well. Like if we know the person's bought a house and they need bond cover, and what's the rest of the advice? Pay off the bond. That's it. We can help with that. But we generally want people to go through the process. Bradley.
Hi, Dirk. So just a question. If you go through a process with a client and you say give them a financial plan, you've done the financial plan, but then they decide they're not going to implement it. So they take this plan and they leave. Sorry, you might have mentioned this already. I might have missed it. Then what do you do? Because now you haven't been remunerated, but you've spent however many hours writing this plan for a client. So how do you guys approach something like that?
Yeah. So Bradley, shock horror, we don't actually write big plans, because we've done it, but the minute you put your pen down, it's invalid because something's changed, or something will change the following day. So we've got various tools that we use. We use Asset Map. We are working on a one-page plan, which should probably be 2 or 3 pages, but we're working on something because we understand the need to give something like physical to a client. But the reality is, I can tell you now, 90% of clients will never read that plan.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm speaking to my mates in London, and again, they will print one out because legislatively they have to. We do very comprehensive minutes in where we explain, parts of the plan, and very often when you finish in that final meeting, well, there's never a final meeting. It's then, okay, these are things we've got to take care of. We've got to sort the will out. We've got to look at this. We've got to do that. We've got to do that. So that's kind of when we finish our process, is really when the work starts, restructuring maybe some risk or this, or re-looking at asset allocation, whatever. So yeah, I mean, and again, and I'll get shut down for this, but that's fine. I mean, I really don't see that there's much value in a written plan. I can show you ones that we've done, and they're meaningless because they meant something on the day they were done. But again, what happens a year later, a whole lot's changed in that client's life. We know with our modeling, we know the direction that they're going. And they understand that. And we actively communicate with our clients. So if Brad, if they want to go work with let them go work with somebody else. Really, I mean, I know that's a fear, but I would say don't do all that work. Don't do all that work until they commit.
So even from your perspective, though, is there a possibility that you would have 3 or 4 meetings with them and then they still decide, okay, no?
Look, it doesn't happen a lot. I had one the other day where the guys actually said, look, this is great, but I'm going overseas. I'm going to sell in Greece for 6 months and there's so much changing. Let's pick it up when I get back. That's fine. It's sometimes it's just a case that they're not ready for it. But yeah, for some people, this isn't for them. Lifestyle planning is, some people only want to talk about the markets, the dollar, the gold price and things. And that's fine. If that's how you want to operate, then fine. But we certainly don't. But again, we need to accept that not everyone is going to be our client.
Yeah. No. Okay. Thanks.
Any other questions? Marguerite, can I ask you, because I know that you girls have also you mentioned one of the other times that I know you were originally, I think, flat fee or something like that, and you've battled a bit with that because this is still the fee discussion. It's nice that we got talking about value, but that's what it should be about. But I mean, can you just maybe share your challenges there and how you've tried to address that?
I think, Dirk, that one of our challenges is that we weren't in the past 2 years able to onboard enough new clients willing and able to pay our flat fee to make the business sustainable. So previously I had a hybrid model with an hourly rate as well as AUM, and we're still using that as a base in some of, well, I'm still using that in the base as a base of the legacy clients I brought along. And we are currently in discussions with possible investors, so we are expecting things to change. So I don't have answers about what the future is going to look like. But what I really think we can all learn from is Brian's comment that he's pricing on value, not time. That in the first place, and secondly, something that stood out for me during this morning's discussion, there's so much debate. If you look on LinkedIn, etc., there's often debates on which fee model or which costing model is the best. And I don't think that should be the conversation. I think the conversation should be, what is the integrity of the planner and the intent of the planner in the relationship with the client? Because there's so many different scenarios and so many different price points at which clients enter this space, and not everybody can afford to pay a professional fee, but somebody might need a product and be happy to pay the commission, and that in that segment, those clients can get advice if they're happy to engage in a relationship with a good advisor that's willing to work on that model.
Yeah. I think also what gets forgotten, I've been divorced once. Can't afford to get divorced again. I don't want to, thank God. But when I never forget, when I got divorced, I was at Glenrand MIB, and I went to one of the directors who knew the most prominent attorney in town. who's related to Alex. And I went to him and said, right, I need an attorney. I'm getting divorced. And he just said to me, he looked at me, I was in my early 30s, and he said, you can't afford me, but go down the passage, you can work with her. And we widely accept that in the legal profession. We accept that in the medical profession. If you're going to deal with a specialist on knees or brains, we widely accept this guy's charging 4 times the medical aid rate. We may be not happy, but we don't question it. Why? Because of our physical health. We want our brain to work, or we want to run again. So it works in the health profession, in the legal profession. I mean, even at accountants, again, so how do you want to run a business? Do you want to go to, and I mean this with the greatest of respect, but you're going to work with a professional who works from his garage, or one who works from a professional office, has staff, has systems, has a nice office? I mean, we know these things don't relate to the advice that you could be getting, but they do provide comfort. Okay, and we do understand that we'll pay someone more that has been around longer, that has a better reputation, that has more years of experience than someone who maybe doesn't have those things. So, and the problem with these people who have all these fee discussions is they lump everyone together. They say that we're all the same, we all do the same thing. The reality is they don't know what we do. They really don't know how lifestyle planning differs from your average broker out there who's got 3,000 clients. But I think, again, we're paying, you're quite right, Marguerite, I think we're paying too much attention to that, and the question should really be around value. Ron Carson, who I love following, I mean, he says, we're not in a price war, we're in a value war. And that's exactly what Brian is talking about. Our clients don't know the value that we add until they've experienced it. So what we have to do is we have to believe in the value that we add, and we have to price that in our minds, and then have the courage to move forward with that. Shannon. Sorry, you muted, Shannon.
What really hits home there is clients don't know the value until they experience it. But again, that's where I really struggle with the new clients, trying to articulate. I look at your fee structure there on a tier scale, and I was quite surprised at, I would say, your fee structures are a very high fee structure. But clearly it works for you. You run a very successful business. So to me, the hard thing is how to articulate that value to somebody you're bringing on for the first time. It's something I really struggle with. Dirk, you're now muted.
I think, why don't we make our next session on that? Why don't we, all of us, where we can participate, instead of me talking all the time, why don't we all just write down, and I'll go around the room, so I'll pick on people who have their cameras off and who don't speak much, but how do we articulate, what do we believe our value is? And again, there's no shaming. It's simply, what is that? So let's do that in our next chat, and then, offer ways of perhaps how we can actually show this, because I think there are physical ways. It's like, I mean, I can say to you that if I take, I can think of 2 new clients we brought on 4 or 5 years ago, did their retirement planning, and we look at where we thought they would be today and where they are now. They are in significantly better positions, significantly better. And I can almost guarantee you that had they not worked with us and had us actually help them and encourage them and hold them accountable and have a plan, that they wouldn't have got to where they are now. They might still be okay, but I really honestly believe that they're in a far better position. And that's massive value. That's massive value in my book. And then it's not about the money anymore. It's like, how are we going to spend this cash? Okay. Guys, it's our time's up. Thanks for participating, those who did. And yeah, so let's set the next meeting talking about ways to articulate our value. And if anyone wants to chat further on the WhatsApp group, go for it. Go for it. Cheers, guys.
Yes.
Cheers, guys. Thank you.